Democratic Senator Mark Warner has decided to go on MSNBC and attack progressive lawmakers over what he believes is their lack of negotiating skills. And he's completely minimized their role in negotiating a relief package for the American people. Let's hear what he has to say, and then I'll give you the reality.
If you're asking me, do I think that this bill was well negotiated? I don't. There should have been a lot more money in it than there currently is.
It's really quite shameful that we find ourselves negotiating a deal with such a small amount of money.
You were very involved, of course, Senator, in the negotiations. How do you respond to that?
I say these are folks who've never negotiated any deal that I think has ever been successful. I mean, we're dealing with a Senate that is still unfortunately controlled by the Republicans. We still have Donald Trump as president, controlling 2/3, in a sense, of the federal government, the executive and the Senate. And the alternative would have been to have people get kicked off of unemployment, get kicked out of their apartments, not get the kind of food assistance that's needed. The Republican deal was sitting at $500 billion. And frankly, there had not even been any conversations between leadership.
I have a lot to say in response. And by the way, we haven't even gotten to the worst part of his appearance on MSNBC yet, but I wanted to open it up to the floor. How did you guys react to his statements there?
Yeah, I just think this is not about deal making as much as it's about actually getting people help. What do people need right now? That should be the bar by which these lawmakers are put. Like, you can't just think, oh, we made a deal, that means it's good because we made a deal with them. No, what did you actually get? Did you actually help people? Are you fighting for people? If you look into Mark Warner and who backs him, you're looking at Wall Street, real estate, insurance companies. That's who he cares about. He doesn't care about the average person. So when we're looking at lawmakers that actually fight for people like Bernie Sanders, like Ilhan Omar, the reason why they are unhappy with this is because this does not actually help people. That's the standard they hold themselves to. Unlike Mark Warner, who simply looks at a deal for deal making purposes and for no other reason except for the way it looks, in the media, as opposed to does it actually help people?
I guess for the first part of this, imagine, Lindsey Graham, another senator, Republican senator, goes on TV, goes on Fox News. I know this was CNN, goes on Fox News, looks in the camera and says, you know what? The progressives started $2.2 trillion. That's where their starting point was. Ours was much lower. But you know what? People like Josh Hawley, who want this $1,200 payment, they've never negotiated a thing in their life. He's just a young senator. I'm not sure what his problem is, but these progressives started in one place, and how are we gonna work across party lines if we don't go to the left where progressives are? Are they ever gonna say that? Are we ever gonna see that on television? Because we see it all the time the other way around. Mark Warner can go on and say, these people like Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders, who are obviously and well-established progressive voices, they've never done anything in their lives. They don't know how to negotiate. When are you gonna start talking about people who you're negotiating with and their bad tactics and negotiations and the way that they don't have the people's best interest at heart? No, it's just really easy to just say, well, our opponents who want nothing for the people we represent, we have to go their direction. So if you're going in the direction of people who are against your constituents, what does that make you against your constituents?
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys are both making really great points. And I wanna just comment on what David has made a point to repeat on the show today. And I'm grateful that you are, because it's such a great point. We keep discussing this like measly amount of money that Americans might get as like a one-time check. We're not having conversations about unemployment benefits, kicking in retroactively. We're not having a discussion about real substantive financial aid in regard to people who haven't been paying their rent, right? And luckily, most people haven't been evicted because of this moratorium. But once that moratorium is lifted, Americans owe back rent. And recently there was a study to see, what the average American who owes back rent is gonna owe once this moratorium is lifted. And that figure is $5,400. That is a lot of money. That's a one lump sum that Americans are gonna be expected to pay once the moratorium is lifted. And most Americans don't have that money. They don't have that money. So there is no discussion about how to help them retroactively at all. And Mark Warner is sitting there and giving us a list of excuses, like a list of excuses. And the reason why I'm saying that it's a list of excuses is because he's pretending like Donald Trump right now is serving as some sort of obstacle, right? He mentioned Donald Trump, but Donald Trump recently, and we have a video on this, had a conversation with Brian Kilmeade. This was just this past weekend where he's urging congressional lawmakers to do more, that these one-time checks need to happen and they need to be robust. So let's take a quick look at that video.
What about an aid package for the American people?
Moving along.
What could you do to get the $900 billion out from Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell?
I'm pushing it very hard. And to be honest with you, if the Democrats really wanted to do the deal, they do the deal. They should do it right now. I want to see checks going for more money than they're talking about going to people.
Okay, so there's Donald Trump on the record just this past weekend demanding one-time checks, direct checks to Americans, more than what's currently being offered, which is $600. He's mentioned $2,000. So use that video to your advantage, Democrats, if you genuinely want to increase that one-time check to Americans. And then he mentions, Mitch McConnell and Republicans in Congress. Mitch McConnell just this week had a call with GOP lawmakers where he said, the fact that the relief package doesn't have one-time checks included, it's hurting the two Republicans in the Senate runoff races in Georgia. So we need to include checks. Good, that means Democrats have leverage. So use that leverage, but Mark Warner doesn't want to use that leverage. Nope. And I think the real question here is why? Why don't you want to use that leverage? And why are you attacking progressives who have been demanding more?
This also shows you that voters lean progressive. When Republican lawmakers are afraid that they're not giving people money and that's hurting them, I mean, it shows you that their own voters want these checks. Their own voters agree with Bernie Sanders. Their own voters agree with Ilhan Omar. They want these checks. They need this help. So it shows you that Democrats have even more of a reason to fight because the people are on their side. But of course, ultimately, people like Mark Warner, they know that they're not on the side of the people. They're on the side of these massive corporations. Their debate is limited by what Democrats and Republicans are talking about in Congress, which is ultimately a very small, amount of disagreement there when it comes to economic policy, especially. So they're never going to challenge that because to them that's normal. It's normal to fight over scraps as opposed to actually fighting for people.
There was one small point of that clip. I'm not sure if you have this with Mark Warner.
Yeah, I do. I want to get to that next. Yeah. So the worst part, in my opinion, of what Mark Warner had to say about progressives is contained in this next clip. Let's take a quick look at that.
Where I differ with some of these so-called progressives, they were willing to take away money or accept taking money away from the unemployed to give out in stimulus checks with Donald Trump's name on it to some folks who frankly have not suffered any economic harm. I think that is misguided, and I don't think it's candidly very progressive when we should be targeting this assistance to whether it's individuals or businesses or childcare centers, those folks most in need.
So Jayar, why don't you take it away? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so there was a line in there. I'm not sure. It was obvious to me, but I'm not sure if everyone picks up on these types of things. He mentioned, okay, I know you guys will get to the unemployment versus stimulus checks because that was number 2 to me. I'll let you take that one. But first one, he goes, they want to take away unemployment so they can pass this check with Donald Trump's name on it. That's an indication to me. I'm not a politician, but I listen to them a lot. He's concerned about how it's going to look good for Donald Trump to have these checks that get passed out with his name on. Remember the first time around, he was sending out letters and he said, from your great president, Donald Trump, with his stupid signature on it. And he said, hey, you guys, before we send out remember the checks got delayed because he wanted to make sure his name was printed on the bottom? Remember all that? That's what Mark Warner's worried about right now because this lame duck president who just lost the election 57 times is now worried about having his name on a check that's maybe to go out to people that need it. Are you concerned about the politics of this, Mark Warner? Because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you don't want his name attached to checks, which by the way, if Trump does attach his name to checks, it's egregious, it's annoying, it's self-serving. But you know what he's self-serving? His way right back out of DC, because he lost. Why are we still concerned? There's a reason why they call it a lame duck president. And people make fun of lame duck presidents because they're like, you have no power left. Whatever you're saying, we can stop talking about right now because you're leaving soon. Why are we still concerned about following behind Donald Trump, who lost, for doing things that Donald Trump will do?
Yeah, no, you make such a good point. And by the way, Tina in our members section, you can become a member by going to tyt.com/join, makes a really good point. Mark Warner is one of the wealthiest people in Congress. He's worth $90 million. Oh my God. And so this is something that, by the way, more than half, the majority of our lawmakers are millionaires. They're incredibly wealthy. And I think that that's relevant because do we really have representation for workers in our government, right? People who actually understand what it's like to be an ordinary American where your wages have been stagnant since the 1970s. And if you're disconnected from that reality, then you don't understand the weight of the negotiations that you're engaged in right now.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.